Found out my fiancée and her bridal consultant friend set me up at brunch. So I canceled everything and saved the chat screenshot and canceled the bank transfer and got Kestrel's audio clip and sent refund emails with my lawyer, and her brokerage pulled her off listings. The calendar entry was written in her neat block letters, right on the paper planner we kept on the counter. It was circled in pink and it said, "Brunch with girls, big announcement." Under it, she drew a tiny champagne glass. I stood there with my keys in my hand and felt my mouth go dry. Our place was a split level outside Lindsborg, Kansas, with a small back deck that always smelled like sun-warmed pine boards. The mudroom had a row of hooks, and my work harness hung on the end like it owned the space. Every night the dishwasher made a soft grinding sound and she always complained about it, like the noise was my fault. I was 41, and I inspected wind turbines for safety. I climb, check bolts, and make sure the blade hardware meets the spec before a storm tests it. A loose bolt can turn into a disaster hours later. At work, I call it a torque check. Her name was Corrine Relland, 40, and she was a licensed real estate broker with a small team in town. She knew everyone who mattered in the local money circles. She also knew how to smile while she cut you. We were engaged and our wedding was 8 weeks away. The final venue payment was due Monday at noon, and after that, the big deposit would be locked. We had already paid for the caterer, the photographer, and the band. I thought the hard part was behind us. The hard part was sitting across from her friends and realizing I was the punchline. It started small weeks earlier. Corrine began calling our wedding plans my dream instead of our plan. She stopped asking what I wanted and started telling me what I would do. One night I asked, "Why do you keep saying your friends can't wait to see my reaction to things?" She gave me a sweet little laugh at first and said, "You're imagining it." Then her eyes sharpened and she added, "Don't be weird. They just have standards." That was confrontation one, and it left a bruise I could not see but felt every time she reached for my hand. Here is the first advice I learned the hard way. If someone uses their friends as a measuring stick, you will always come up short. A partner should protect your dignity, not loan it out for jokes. If you feel yourself shrinking, pay attention. The morning I saw that calendar entry, I tried to act normal. I made coffee, packed my lunch, and listened to her hum while she got ready. She kissed my cheek and said, "Don't be late, okay?" Like she was planning a show and I was the timing. On the drive to my site, I kept thinking about wind and pressure. People love to say relationships are about compromise, but some things are not meant to bend. That thought followed me up the ladder. At the top of the turbine, the air was clean and loud. I tightened my gloves, looked at my checklist, and forced my mind back to work. A torque check is simple. Either the bolt holds or it doesn't. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a preview from a group chat I was not supposed to see. It flashed on the lock screen because Corrine's tablet was still linked to my number from when we set up the smart thermostat. The message said, "Make sure you do it in front of him. No backing out." It was from someone named Kestrel. I stared at the screen and felt my heartbeat slow down instead of speed up. That was the strange part. The more certain I became, the calmer I got. The pressure was doing its job. I did not open the chat. I did not dig for more. I just took a screenshot of the preview because I knew what happens when people rewrite the story later. That night, Corrine moved around the house like everything was fine. She talked about table settings and how her friends loved the brunch place we picked. When I asked what the big announcement was, she smiled again, sweet on the surface. Then she went sharp. "You'll see," she said. "Try not to embarrass me." She said it like it was a normal request. My stomach turned, but my voice stayed steady. I said, "I won't embarrass you." I did not add the rest because the rest was already forming in my head. Sunday came fast. Brunch was at a bright cafe in Salina with big windows and fake plants in white pots. The air smelled like syrup and toasted bread, and the tables were so close you could hear other people's forks. Corrine arrived first with 3 women who looked like they dressed the same on purpose. They were laughing hard, loud enough for strangers to glance over. One of them was Kestrel Dane, 39, who worked as a bridal gown consultant at a luxury shop in Wichita. Kestrel's job was helping brides look perfect. She talked in a smooth voice like she was always selling comfort. Her nails were painted a soft, neutral color, and she held her phone like it was part of her hand. Corrine waved me over to the table like I was an accessory that arrived on time. She introduced me quick, almost like she was reading a label. Then she leaned back and started telling a story about how I once wore my work boots to a nice dinner. I smiled politely and let it pass. I thought, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I just need a torque check on my own nerves. Then Corrine lifted her glass and said it, clear as a bell. "I'm calling off the wedding," she said, still smiling. "I don't love you anymore." She said it in front of her friends like she was announcing a dessert special. For half a second, her friends watched my face like they were waiting for tears. One of them even giggled. Corrine's eyes stayed on me like she was daring me to fall apart. I felt something settle inside me, like a bolt finally seated. I took a breath and said, "Thank you for your honesty." The words came out calm and the table went quiet for one beat. I reached into my pocket, slid the ring off the chain I wore under my shirt, and set it on the table. Corrine blinked like she did not expect me to move first. I picked it up again and slipped it back into my pocket like it was mine, because it was. Then I stood up, straightened my jacket, and said, "I'll be hosting a dodged a bullet party instead." A couple of her friends snorted like it was funny. Corrine's mouth curled like she was still in charge. Their laughter stopped when I added, "And since every wedding deposit was paid from my account, I'm canceling everything before noon tomorrow, so the refunds come back to me." I did not raise my voice. I did not threaten. I just said the truth. Corrine's face changed fast. For the first time, she looked scared instead of smug. Kestrel's eyes flicked to Corrine like she had just realized this was not a game. That was the moment the room flipped. Not because I made a bigger scene, because I refused to be the scene. I walked out without slamming a door. Outside, the sun was bright and the air felt too normal for what just happened. My hands were steady, and that scared me more than shaking would have. In my truck, I opened the group chat preview screenshot again. Then I waited. I knew texts were coming. They always come. Corrine used a friend's phone to call me within 10 minutes. I did not answer. I drove to a quiet overlook by the river and sat there until my breathing felt even again. Here is the second advice, and it is practical. When someone humiliates you in public, do not beg for a private explanation. Step away, drink water, and decide your next move while you are calm. Calm is a shield. By late afternoon, the messages started pouring in through email and social apps. Corrine wrote, "We need to talk. You're being dramatic." Then she wrote, "You can't just cancel things." She kept typing like she could rewrite my bank account with her words. I opened our wedding planning portal, the one tied to my email because I set it up. It showed our vendor list, balances, and deadlines in neat boxes. I took screenshots of every payment confirmation. Then the money proof arrived as a bank alert, like a quiet bell. It was from my bank, and it showed the venue auto payment scheduled for Monday morning. I canceled the scheduled transfer with one tap and saved the confirmation screen. I was not going to let her use my money to celebrate my own humiliation. That night, I called a lawyer named Bramwell Sayegh, a man in his 60s who sounded like he never rushed. He told me to meet him somewhere public, somewhere with cameras, and keep it clean. I met him at a late-night bus depot cafe with fluorescent lights and stale pretzels under glass. Bramwell listened while I explained the brunch and the deposits and the deadline. He did not gasp or judge. He just nodded and said, "You don't owe anyone a performance." Then he added, "Document, cancel, communicate once." After that, silence. He helped me write a short email to each vendor. It was simple and polite. It said the wedding was canceled, I was the payer, and I wanted refund terms in writing. No insults, no blame, just facts. The next morning, I woke up early in the quiet house. Kareen's side of the closet looked untouched, like she expected to come home and keep living here. The dishwasher made that grinding sound, and for the first time I felt grateful for a noise I could count on. I canceled the venue first, because that was the big one. The venue manager replied with a copy of our contract and confirmed the cutoff time for refunds. Bramwell's name on the email thread helped, not as a threat, but as a reminder that I would not be pushed around. Then I did the caterer, then the band, then the rentals. Each cancellation felt like removing weight from my chest. Kareen showed up at the house that afternoon, eyes wide, moving too fast. She started sweet, saying she was sorry and she didn't mean it like that. I stood near the entryway and kept my hands at my sides. Then she went sharp when I did not soften. "My friends were joking," she snapped. "You can't punish me for one brunch." Her tone acted like she was still the bride and I was still the guy who would forgive anything. That's when the communication proof became full and undeniable. Kestrel Dane messaged me on a business account, not her personal one. She wrote, "I need to clear this up. I didn't know she was going to do that." Attached was a screenshot of their group chat, the one she forgot my number could see previews from. The messages spelled it out in plain language. Kareen had planned to call off the wedding at brunch because it would be iconic, and she wanted a clean reaction shot. Kestrel followed it with an audio clip. It was recorded at the table before I arrived, when they thought the cafe noise would cover their voices. Kareen was laughing and saying, "If he cries, don't comfort him. Let him sit in it." Someone else said, "This is going to be so good." That audio clip was the killer receipt. It turned the whole thing from a messy breakup into a planned humiliation. It was not about love ending. It was about power. Kestrel's message ended with one line. "Please don't tag my shop in anything. I can't be part of this." She was already protecting her reputation. In a strange way, that was her betrayal of Kareen, and it mattered. Here is the third advice, and it's for anyone who gets ambushed like that. Keep your receipts, even if you never post them. You don't save proof to be petty. You save proof so you don't get gaslit into thinking you deserved it. Kareen tried to claim I stole her ring, even though I bought it. She tried to tell my mother I was unstable. She even hinted online that I had embarrassed her at brunch, flipping it like she was the victim. Bramwell told me to make one statement and stop, so I did. I emailed both families a simple timeline with 3 screenshots: the bank alert cancel confirmation, the vendor cancellation confirmations, and the group chat screenshot with the plan. I did not post it publicly. I sent it privately to the people who mattered. That is how you stop rumors without feeding them. The location proof came from the cafe itself when I requested my receipt. The manager emailed it and included the reservation notes Kareen had entered. The notes said, "Window table preferred for photos. Celebration vibes. Extra champagne glasses." Those notes were small, but they mattered. They showed she booked the table like it was a staged moment. It was not just a breakup. It was a set. 2 weeks later, Kareen asked to meet me in person at the local Realtor Association office. She said she wanted to close it like adults. Bramwell came with me, calm and quiet, and we sat in a conference room with framed house photos and stale coffee in a metal carafe. Kareen walked in with a folder like she was ready for court. Her face was tight and her eyes were red, but her posture was still proud. She sat down and acted like she owned the air. This was confrontation 3, and it happened after the proof. She started with deny. "I never planned to humiliate you," she said, shaking her head. Then she minimized. "It was brunch," she said. "People say dramatic things. You're taking it too seriously." She said it like my feelings were the problem, not her choice. Then she partially admitted. "Okay, my friends hyped me up," she said, "but you weren't listening to me for months." I needed a clean break. She looked at me like that should settle it. Then she went for the emotional move, voice cracking. "You ruined my life," she said. "Everyone thinks I'm a monster now. My team is looking at me different. I just want it out." She reached for sympathy like it was another tool. Bramwell didn't argue. He slid the audio transcript across the table, short and neat. He said, "This isn't a clean break. This is cruelty with a plan." Corrine stared at the paper and went quiet. She didn't apologize. She just looked trapped by her own words. That told me everything I needed. After that meeting, her brokerage owner pulled her off a few listings tied to high-end clients. Not because of gossip, but because clients talk, and trust is a real currency in her business. The association also opened an ethics review after a complaint about her using personal drama to pressure a vendor, because she tried to call the venue and claim I was not authorized. Kestrel abandoned her completely when the review started. Kestrel sent the association a statement saying she did not support the brunch stunt and provided the chat log to protect her own shop from being linked. Corrine lost the friend she used like an audience. That was fitting. I moved out of our place within a month. I rented a small upstairs room above a model train hobby shop in McPherson. The hallway smelled like machine oil and cardboard boxes, and the floorboards creaked like they were telling secrets. It was quiet, and I slept like a man who finally stopped bracing for impact. Work got better when my mind cleared. I took a senior field role and started training younger techs. I taught them the same lesson every day. A torque check is not about fear. It's about respect for what happens when you ignore the truth. Kestrel and I didn't become close right away. We just spoke a few times because she wanted to make sure Corrine didn't drag her into it again. Over time, our talks became less about the mess and more about normal life, coffee, work, weather, small plans. One evening, months later, Kestrel invited me to a small pierogi dinner at a tiny church basement fundraiser in a nearby town. The room smelled like butter and onions, and the tables were covered in paper cloths. She looked nervous, then she said, "I'm sorry I laughed that day." I didn't realize how far she would go. I didn't turn it into a speech. I just said, "Thank you for telling the truth." That was enough. The dodged-a-bullet party still happened, but it wasn't loud and cruel. It was 6 friends at my brother's garage, music low, burgers on a grill, and a lot of honest laughter. It felt like healing, not revenge. A year later, I was standing on a turbine platform watching storm clouds roll across the fields. My phone buzzed once with a blocked number attempt, and I didn't care. I had already done my torque check on that chapter, and it held. Kestrel and I sat later that night at a little Scandinavian bakery in Lindsborg, sharing a slice of almond cake. The place smelled like warm sugar and coffee, and the lights were soft. She smiled and said, "You don't flinch anymore." I looked out at the quiet street and felt steady. I said, "That's what happens when you stop living for an audience." Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.